Michael Brown incident or anything like that, where they're going to now have a committee that's going to vote, yay or nay in terms of how the NFL themselves are going to handle these cases, what the policy will be in terms of how many games you'll miss, where you won't exactly miss the whole year. You will only miss, I think the penalty is 6 games in the year, but it'll be with pay. And it involves a lot of other little rules and things, and all the owners agreed, and they unanimously, you could say, approved this new policy, which will hopefully squash any issues that people have with how the NFL deals with harassment and player conduct on and off the field.
This is probably the best idea the NFL has ever had in the history of its existence. Because quite frankly, they need to, have a committee to do this. Because then there isn't just one person. It isn't just the owner of the team or the head of the NFL or something that gets the blowback for this. It's a impartial committee that has standards. So they're setting this up so that people are going to be equally judged. Their actions will be equally judged. And I think it's probably going to be the only way to keep this down. Because quite frankly, as it is, the way they've been dealing with each individual situation has been wildly different depending on the player.
Right.
So having a standardized set of rules is probably going to help a lot, because then even the players know that this is how it's going to be treated. If I screw up, I am going to be treated the same as any other player.
Now, my only issue I have with this is, as long as Meredith, you and I agree that one of the cases that should not go to this committee is renaming the Redskins. Because I can see them saying that that's something that this impartial committee should be involved in whether or not that should happen. I don't think they should have any say as to whether or not a team should change their name.
Yeah, that would be an awful thing. I don't think that should be something that they'll do. Of course, we have no way of knowing if they will or not, but unfortunately, they probably will cover that under everything else. But if we're lucky, it will only be issues dealing with players, not dealing with the team themselves as a whole. Because I think that should be left up to the owners. It's basically their property. They don't need, the brand being changed right out from under them as an owner. So having it just deal with the players individually, that would work.
Yeah. So since we have a little bit of time before we end this show and go on to our next one, why not talk about cookie dough?
We should talk about cookie dough. Because it is super, super close to Christmas, and I love Christmas cookies a lot.
Exactly. Especially if you had a vote, if you had to choose between talking about Jonathan Gruber, the $1.1 trillion bill that just got passed, and cookie dough, I mean, which would you choose?
Definitely going to choose the cookie dough.
All right. You heard it here, people. Those were our choices, and we're going with cookie dough.
Hey, why not?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know how you feel about this, Erica, but I feel like cookie dough, like raw cookie dough, is the best part of making cookies. It is. Just saying.
I'm not a baker, so I don't know. I've never actually eaten raw cookie dough. Can I say that?
Oh, you are missing out on one of the joys in life, Erica. This is sad. So sad. I think something's going to happen about this. I can't ship it to you, obviously, because that would be a bad idea. But,
would it? Well, what does the government... Why does the government say it's such a terrible thing?
Well, the USDA is saying that people who eat cookie dough, which contains usually raw or partially cooked eggs, the people should stop doing that. They should stop eating raw cookie dough because you're, risking getting E. coli, salmonella poisoning from this. Now, I have to tell you something. I have been baking cookies since I was a very small child, and I have not let a single batch go by without eating raw cookie dough, and I have never had salmonella poisoning from raw cookie dough. I mean, okay, if you eat cookie dough you've left sitting out overnight, yeah, you're probably going to get salmonella poisoning, but you deserve it at that point. You shouldn't eat anything you left sitting out on the counter overnight.
I think this is like one of those, and I hate to compare this, because it's like really like apples and oranges comparing this to the Black Lives Matter incident, but this is one of those cases where it seems to be growing exponentially, where the smaller the amount of people it affects, the more they feel they have to change the rule for everybody. Like, I understand, Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter. And how many instances of people dying due to eating cookie dough, considering I think raw cookie dough has been eaten, by little children and grown adults for decades, if not centuries. Since the idea of cookie dough has been invented, I think people have been eating it raw. And I don't recall there being such a large amount of people dying due to raw cookie dough that it needs to now be almost banned by the government.
Right, I mean, they can't ban it. What are they going to do? Throw me in prison for eating raw cookie dough? What are they going to do to me here?
They're gonna send the government. They're gonna send government agents. You're gonna have to have one government agent accompany you when you go to grocery stores, and depending on how many jars of raw cookie dough you purchase. I don't know. I don't know how you regulate that.
You can't. All you can do is recommend people not do it. But at that point, why even bother? I'm sorry. The number of people who get sick from salmonella poisoning from raw cookie dough in a single year versus the number of people who ingest said cookie dough is so tiny that it's not even worth warning people off. Okay, so here's the rule. Don't eat raw cookie dough. You bought it from a store. You don't know how long that's been in the tube. That's just silly. Don't eat it out of a tube of cookie dough. Bad idea. And if you making it at home, don't leave it out overnight. And use good eggs, fresh eggs, to make it. You're not going to probably get sick from this. So, watch somebody get mad because they get salmonella poisoning after listening to this show. This is, disclaimer. Medically speaking, the USDA says don't eat raw cookie dough. In my opinion, do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, I mean, if someone dies from overeating or from having too much butter in their diet or whatever it is, that's not the government's fault. That's not the the company that made the food product. That's your own damn fault. And there's too many instances of government trying to quote unquote help / regulate what we're doing in order to prevent us from harming ourselves. But it is our own choice. It's your own choice to eat the raw cookie dough or not eat it,
Right. Well, and here's the real thing, is that, okay, speaking as someone who has had salmonella poisoning once in their life, it is not the end of the world. If you get it once, you're probably not going to die. And if you stop eating cookie dough, that's, at what expense? You're just destroying one of the joys of life on the off chance, the very tiny chance that you might get salmonella poisoning and have an uncomfortable couple of days. That's all I'm saying. It's not worth it.
I hear you. So that's going to end our show for this week. And again, next week we're just going to do a quick recap on previous episodes. We might update you on a show that we discussed beforehand, on a story we mentioned. But we're really just going to highlight, some of what happened in the past year of 2014 on our episode next week. And then we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back January 9th with our first episode of our third season, 2015.
Amazing so far.
I know, we made it to the end of this year, and it'll be happy times because we'll have a government, which is basically Congress, which is run by Republicans. Let's see what happens. Happy days.
It'll be amazing.
It will be. So we'll catch you guys next week.
You've been listening to Two Conservative Lesbians.
Don't forget to share and like our episodes that can be found on YouTube, iHeartRadio, and iTunes.
And check out elementarypolitics.com for even more news, politics, and entertainment coverage from both of us, as well as several talented writers.
The Afterthoughts show is coming up next. Till next week, America.